On the last episode of Menace, the Ken story. Long story short, I had to lock her down. I hadn't ever had a serious girlfriend, but as far as I was concerned, Shalonda was it. She was gorgeous, smart, and as sweet as pie. And if I wanted her, I could guarantee the other dudes wanted her too. It just so happened that I got to Shalonda on the second day of school, and the other guys were probably scared to challenge me. But she had a mind of her own. What would I have done if she wanted somebody else? I wasn't trying to let it go there. I went back to the words that Kenny said to me on the day that he got killed. We were at the malls, and he was giving me advice about girls. He said, "We're young, and we got a long time before we need to be thinking about settling down. But this is the trick. Every girl you deal with got to know their place with you. That's how you keep it from getting messy. If you meet a girl and you just want to sleep with her, don't promise her anything other than that. If that ain't enough for her, let her walk. You can replace her. You ain't got enough energy to treat all of them good. But if you find somebody that's worth it, treat her better than you've ever treated anybody else. You ain't even got to be faithful to her, but make her feel like she's the most important thing to you, and she's going to return the favor." I had to be honest. Me and Hotboi were running like crazy. I knew that I was probably going to sleep with other girls, but I ain't even want Shalonda to look at another guy. I know that sounds selfish, but it was different for us. Shalonda was a good girl. She couldn't even come out of the house. She could barely even talk on the phone. In order for me to deal with her, I had to understand that I couldn't touch her. I was okay with that because there was so much more to her. But I'm saying, I was 16. After having all the free sex that I wanted, being abstinent with Shalonda was a hard ask. I was prepared to treat her better than I had ever treated anybody else because I felt like she was worth it. I was going to give her all the attention and conversation she wanted. I was going to make her feel like she was the most important thing to me. I just knew I was going to cheat on her. She wasn't going to be with nobody else though, and that was that. I ain't even play around. I didn't ask Shalonda to be my girlfriend because I wasn't trying to give her a chance to say no. Me and Shalonda were in a gym. It was late October, maybe early November, so we weren't walking around the track. It was kind of chilly. We were sitting on the bleachers. I grabbed her hand and started the conversation. It went like this. I said, "Hey, look, I like you a lot. You like me too, right? I'm not going to keep acting like I don't know what I want. I want you to be my girlfriend. But this is the thing. You can't do a lot of playing around. There are a lot of guys out there that would love to be in my spot. The only person that can say no is you. I don't want to be out here looking crazy, and I don't want you to waste my time. So I just need you to stay out of everybody's face but mine, okay?" Shalonda looked up at me. She smiled in that shy but sweet way that she always did. "Okay," she said, and that was it. She smiled, and I smiled. Chapter 10, Bad Luck, narrated by Symone. Man, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have had any luck at all. I mean, it was good with Shalonda. Things stayed the same for a little while, and I was good with that. I had sex with other girls, but she fed something inside of me that they couldn't touch. I just had to wait for things in our lives to line up a little bit. I stayed in a space with Shalonda that wouldn't have existed with anybody else. It was innocent. By the time we were a few months in, I had graduated to giving her a kiss on the cheek at the end of the day. I felt like she was completely pure, which wasn't entirely true, but I felt like she was at the time. And because of that, I felt the need to keep her comfortable. And that didn't just pertain to our relationship. I wanted to keep her out of everything. Shalonda had no idea what I did outside of school hours. I never discussed it, and she never asked. It was like this strange gap where things just stopped and reconnected every day. During school hours, it was me and her. I clocked out and went to sell weed and sleep with other girls from 3 to 10. Then I was the boyfriend on the phone until Shalonda was ready to go to sleep. That's the thing about being young. You can manage all kinds of things off of pure will just because you want to. But you can't manage everything. Sometimes your luck just runs out. It was November, and we had just come back to school from Thanksgiving break. I hadn't seen Shalonda for a couple of days because we were out of school, but we had been talking on the phone at night. I was so glad to see her when we got back. We had a good day, and I walked her to a bus. Hotboi picked me up from school, and we made our runs. It was around 6:30, and we decided to park the car and smoke. And wouldn't you know it, we got rolled on. The police pulled up. And because the car obviously smelled like weed, they had probable cause to search us and the car. Me and Hotboi both had individual bags of weed on us, which could have amounted to intent to distribute. But because we had dropped most of it off, we told them that it was just for our personal use. That didn't matter though. Weed was still illegal at the time, and we were parked in a public playground parking lot. So of course, we got locked up. They put us in the back of the police car together. Hotboi leaned over and whispered in my ear, "We just gotta take it. Keep your mouth shut." And that's what I did. You would have thought we were some kingpins instead of two 16 and 18-year-old kids. They were grilling us hard, asking where we got the weed. We stuck to the personal use story, and they really couldn't prove anything different. They slapped us with possession charges. Hotboi knew better than to call Rob because he didn't want anything leading back to him, so he called Tommy, saying he was our uncle. Before I knew it, Ma was bonding both of us out. Rob had contacted her and given her the money to come and get us. I didn't tell Shalonda about the arrest. I couldn't. She didn't know anything about my life outside of her, and I didn't want that to be the introduction. They gave me a court date in January, and I decided to let it play out. Rob said they'd probably give both of us a slap on the wrist because it was the first offense for both of us. I felt like that's how it was going to play out too, so I didn't sweat it. I lived every day like nothing was going on. But I got a rude awakening when I went to court. It was my first time getting into any real legal trouble, but they came in with my school records and everything. They talked about my history of suspensions and how I had been known to skip school and how I had beat up a student and the vice principal. By the time they laid it all out, they made it look like I was an escalating menace. Actually, that's what they said. The prosecutor said, "This boy is an escalating menace. He's going to be a serious problem if he doesn't face some consequences for his actions." I wasn't ready for that. My court-appointed lawyer wasn't ready for that either. But the judge agreed. He gave me 6 months in a juvenile facility. I was crushed. I really didn't think the judge would give me any time. That said, I hadn't gotten anything in order. I hadn't thought about what was going to happen to Ma with me being gone. And I hadn't had the chance to talk to Shalonda about any of it. She didn't even know I had gotten into trouble at all. But there was nothing I could do about it. I went straight to the juvenile facility from court. Hotboi went home. They basically gave him a slap on the wrist. I got to juvie around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and met with my counselor. She gave me the rundown and sent me to the supply room. There, I was given 3 uniforms, 3 white t-shirts, 3 pairs of gray sweatpants, 3 pairs of white boxers, 3 pairs of white socks, a pair of generic white tennis shoes, a pair of black boots, a pair of slides, and a pair of flip-flops. I was made to change into a uniform before going into the housing building. I was also given a white plastic bag. On the outside, it said hygiene. I didn't know what to expect out of juvie. At that time, I didn't know anybody else who had ever been. It turns out it wasn't like jail. It was more like a group home setting. It was one large building with the bedrooms that formed a circle. In the middle of that circle was a common area with a couple of televisions and some games. Each bedroom had two small beds, two lockers, a toilet sink combo. The showers were down the hall. There were other buildings for meals and classes. I was placed in room 17 and assigned to bed 2. I went into the room and dumped the hygiene bag on the bed. Included was a bar of soap, a small tube of toothpaste, a toothbrush, deodorant, hotel-sized containers of shampoo and lotion, a lock, and an ordering form for when new hygiene items were needed. Somebody opened the door and peeked their head in. "Hey, you can? They want you in the counselor's office." I walked to the counselor's office where I just left less than an hour earlier. "I forgot to give you this," she said. The counselor handed me a piece of paper. It was my schedule. I looked at it and realized that dinner would be served in less than 30 minutes, at 5 o'clock. Who eats dinner at 5 o'clock, I thought. But then I realized that I had to be in bed by 8 o'clock. I guess I wouldn't have time to get hungry again. I got back to my room and found that someone was there. He was a Latino kid who looked to be around my age. He held his hand out and introduced himself. "I'm Sebastian. You'll be rooming with me." I shook his hand and told him that my name was Ken. I stepped back over to my bed, prepared to put my things into my locker. I scanned the items, realizing that something was missing. "I took the lotion," said Sebastian. I was confused. I looked at him and asked, "Well, why would you do that?" He shrugged his shoulders and said, "I'm almost out." I looked at him for a second, wondering if he was going to tell me that he was kidding. He didn't say anything. I stepped closer to him. We were nearly nose to nose. "I'm going to need you to give that back," I said. Sebastian paused for a second before reaching into his back pocket and handing the lotion over to me. "Watch your stuff around here," he said. I didn't know what to say, so I responded, "Yeah, you too." I thought about how stupid that was after I said it, but it was too late. "We eat in 20 minutes, he said. Sebastian left the room. I shook my head, then quickly put my things away. The cafeteria was in another nearby building. I walked there by myself, grateful that it was time to eat. I hadn't eaten anything since breakfast that morning, and I was long overdue. The line was long, and I was wondering what the holdup was. Once I got closer, I realized that there was an officer at the entrance to the cafeteria. He stood there with a little metal clicker in his right hand, counting each person as they entered the cafeteria. He was also tasked with making sure that each person's shirt was neatly tucked into their pants before they entered. That was a part of the uniform code. All shirts must be neatly tucked in prior to entering the common areas. It turned out that the holdup was attributed to random boys who wanted to challenge the code. They'd approach with their shirts untucked and be angry when they were forced to tuck them in before entering. Each and every time, the remaining line of boys would yell and scream, "Just tuck your shirt in, man," or "Come on, we're trying to eat." It seemed like the most ridiculous thing to me. In my mind, I thought, you know the rule, just tuck your shirt in. I finally made my way to the cafeteria and got a tray. The meal consisted of a grayish piece of meat that was passed off as turkey, loose boxed mashed potatoes, and mixed vegetables that were all cut into small cubes. I scanned the room for an empty table, thinking it would be best to sit alone until I got to know some people. I didn't find an empty table. What I did find was Omar. Omar was the friend that I had got caught breaking into the abandoned building with when I was younger. Both of us had transferred to the same school, but we weren't really hanging out like that. I mean, we didn't fall off or anything. We just hung in different circles. But in that moment, Omar was a welcome sight. It was good to see a familiar face. I walked over to where Omar was seated. He stood when he saw me approaching and gave me a hug. "What you doing here?" he asked. "It's a long story. A long short story," I said. He introduced me, kinda. He said, "Hey y'all, this is my homeboy Ken." He never told me any of their names, but it was cool. I would be there for 6 months. I had time to figure it out. Omar asked who I was rooming with. When I mentioned Sebastian's name, he laughed. "Watch him," said Omar. "Me and that dude came to blows when I first got here. We alright now, though." I hadn't thought anything about Sebastian one way or the other, but it turned out that he was bad. I mean, like, next level Chinney bad. Sebastian was 15, and he was at the juvenile facility for the second time. He had been in trouble for everything from stealing to fighting his parents to selling drugs. Oh yeah, Chinney. Only Chinney hadn't ever gotten locked up. One of the other dudes told me that Sebastian had sticky fingers and to watch my stuff around him. Yeah, I could see that. And I had to room with him. Just my luck. Being in there with somebody like Sebastian made me so mad. I ain't saying what I did was good, but I ain't hurt nobody. I was just minding my business and smoking some weed. The fact that they were trying to put me on the Sebastian menace level was ridiculous. But there I was, and there was nothing I could do about it. Thank you so much for listening. Please follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to purchase books by Shandora Warren, they're all available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and some in hardback formats. Please like and follow this podcast, and feel free to share it with your friends, family, and frenemies, because all relationships matter, even the toxic ones. Thanks so much for helping me to create the world that I want to see. Oh yeah, you're welcome. Shine, little girl.